Welcome to our Aero Insights webinar today. My name is Tim White. We will be addressing today the Joint Strategic Quality Council, which is a partnership between government and industry. I'm joined today by a couple of very important people. I'm really excited to talk through some of these topics with them and explore what we're doing in this world where we're looking jointly at quality. As we begin, I think we may have additional panelists coming on board, but I'm going to start identifying our first panelist, Steve Rooms. Steve, would you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and where you're coming from.
Thank you, Tim. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, based on where you're located. My name is Steve Rooms. I'm the manager of the FAA Process and Technical Standardization Section and Aircraft Certification Systems Oversight Division. My primary responsibility is to work to develop our processes to look to standardize things, especially areas of oversight, UAS, and airworthiness. So I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to be part of this webinar.
Fantastic. Thanks, Steve. Doug Cartney.
Thanks, Tim. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Doug Cartney. I'm Corporate Director for Quality and Mission Assurance here at Northrop Grumman. Also the Vice Chair for the Quality Assurance Committee for AIA, and active member, of course, as you'll find out here in a minute, on the Joint Strategic Quality Council. So thanks, Tim.
Yes, indeed. So appreciate them both joining. We may have some additional people join on as we proceed through the webinar, but we wanted to get after it. So Ananda, let's hit the next slide, which is our agenda. So today, what we wanted to convey to you who are attending, first of all, what is the Joint Strategic Quality Council? Give you an overview of what we are, and also hear a little bit from the government as well. We're also interested then in transitioning over to a discussion on model-based quality assurance, which is a topic that when I came into AIA, I was very interested in. I think that intersection between engineering, quality, digital thread is a really fascinating place to be. And then we will conclude our conversation on NAS 414, and we will take a look at what that's changing in the world of supplier management. We do anticipate having some time for questions at the end. I think that folks, if you're interested in learning more, can certainly reach out to any of us here online, and I can connect you with the right people. We can make sure that we've got questions answered. So with that, let's transition over to the JSQC overview. So Ananda, give us, and one more slide. There we go. So what is the Joint Strategic Quality Council? We are a group of collaborative quality professionals. And the word that I always use when I talk about the JSQC is partnership. And the reason I say that is that it recognizes that we are fundamentally, we have different roles and responsibilities, and yet we have a common objective. And that objective is to ensure that we are improving product quality, we're eliminating industry and government requirements, and that we are transitioning from detection to prevention in the quality space. All of that comes together to say we are trying to deliver the highest quality organizations to both government and industry. And we're doing that through some really innovative approaches as we're looking at things from first principles perspectives and trying to consider, are there opportunities for us to operate more effectively and efficiently in these activities that we mutually undertake? You can see that from the government perspective, we've got DCMA, NASA, we've got the FAA, we've got Undersecretary of War for Research and Engineering, all participating. And then as part of the associations, which are the representatives of the Defense Industrial Base, AIA, IAQG, and NDIA have partnered to bring together, to really form the convening location for this group. And we are convening between government and industry. And so you can see many of the logos of those companies that are participating with us on the right-hand side. I will tell you, as one who has been involved in government and industry and looking at intersections between those two, this is the most collaborative engagement that I've seen throughout my career. Um, I'm really impressed with our ability to push back and forth, to consider new approaches, to really discuss the topics and arrive at mutually beneficial solutions. So the point that I would make from this slide is that if you don't see your logo there, or even if you do see your logo and you're not exactly sure what you're doing, or you would like to be engaged, I'd love to have you reach out and let's connect. Let's talk about what we're doing here. Let's talk about what you and your organization could be benefited by engaging with us. As you think about engagement, we've got three primary areas that we're working in. One is standard work, another one is reducing oversight, and then we're also trying to look to the future and looking at technology and what we can leverage there to bring us to the next level. Now, I'm really pleased to have Steve on with us today, and I wanted to pose a question as we begin this. Steve, from the perspective that you sit in within the government, tell me about your engagement here. Why is it that the JSQC is worth your time, and what are you looking to get out of it?
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. So first of all, once again, I appreciate the opportunity to be part of the JSQC. I find participating in this government and industry partnership to be very productive when working these collaborative initiatives, such as QMS and safety performance. From my vantage point, what I see as a common theme in working these initiatives is risk, safety, and QMS oversight. And of course, from the FAA perspective, we conduct risk-based oversight of our FAA production approval holders to determine, are they meeting their quality system requirement, which is very synonymous to QMS, and is it in condition for safe operation? And additionally, aligning with that, we've been working alongside with our design and production organization with the Part 5 implementation of SMS. And with that Part 5 is SMS, of course, it's a formal top-down approach, how you identify hazard, manage safety risk, and of course, ensuring that your risk controls are effective. And this is also including controlling of the supply chain. And even when you couple that with QMS, with all the policies, procedures, and processes, this is the very foundation for SMS and QMS in a relationship. And what I've seen a lot with the JSQC and the partnership is that they're working, as you can see in those key focus areas, with the standard of work, with the active engagement, everything is leading to identifying risk, looking at what type of effective oversight, so you're not having redundant oversight, and everything like that. And of course, looking at the safety aspect. So I really appreciate that. When I see these core strategies such as risk-based approach to customer surveillance, eliminate redundant surveillance, and also aligning, as you see in those key focus areas of standard of work, reducing oversight, I think it also aligns a lot with our SMS components of, identifying hazards and applying all those risk controls to ensure safety. So overall, from the FAA perspective, we will continue to look forward to working with the JSQC to strengthen and advance a risk-based risk and safety approach to the aviation industry. So I do appreciate the time, and I think in going forward, we can continue to work collaboratively to look at safety, risk, and quality.
I really like that. Um, that's a great framing there, and I really resonate with the way that you tied together SMS, safety management system, and QMS, quality management system. They certainly exist with a high overlap, and recognizing that by influencing one, you certainly influence the other, I think is critical as we go forward. I think, and we'll talk about some of these projects here. Um, it's just fascinating to me that every time we get together, there are new ideas that come to the forefront. And just hearing you talk about SMS and QMS, and, it gets me thinking about where is the next project there? How do we tie those two things together more fully? How do we study? How do we execute? How do we make sure that we are delivering value in multiple dimensions? And so, Steve, always appreciate your partnership and leadership and guidance to be with us.
Thank you, Tim.
So, Ananda, let's go to the next slide. Um, Go ahead and build through this slide, if you would, Ananda. What I think you're seeing here is the history of the JSQC. And what I think is so interesting is that IAQG and DCMA entered into a partnership in 2012, 13 years ago, to look at quality, to look at what they were mutually trying to accomplish there. And it kind of evolved over some time to move not necessarily away from that model, but to recognize the breadth and the impact of a large coalition of moving together towards a common goal. So, as you can see, DCMA launched the JSQC in 2019. So, we've been doing this formally for about 6 years. And you can see that roughly in 2018, we came together and began to publish. And really in October of 2017, we started to formalize that agreement in 2020, November of 17, we published that first white paper. And really now you can see that AIA, NDIA, IEQG, we are the convening location, and we're where the conversation is held. But really, truly, the heart of what really goes on is ensconced in Doug and Northrop and the other representatives, and then the representatives from the government side. So what you're seeing here is this evolution as we have come together and as you have more and more and more people coming on board and saying, this is something that we need to do. We need to go and solve these problems together. So let's go ahead to the next slide. The next slide talks about some of the projects that we're undertaking. And the reason I wanted to include this is to foot stomp, because I'm not going to walk through every one of these things, but I did want to foot stomp the concept that we are not just convening. We're moving. We're making changes. And in particular, that's really what we're all about. So we get together and we can talk about quality and we can talk about safety, and we certainly do. But the vast majority of time that we spend is talking about the improvement projects and the development projects that we're undertaking. You can see that each one of those projects is aligned with one of our focus areas, one of our three. I won't run through all of these, as I said, but we're going to get a sampling today of two of those projects that I thought were really interesting simply because they're really right on the cusp of either having been released or about to be released, and they're going to start impacting and trickling into industry and being executed by government. So today is a great day, and what you'll see is that we'll finish those projects and then we'll return back to the well and think about what is next. What should we be working on next? And there are more projects than there is time, and that's for darn sure. And we try to be very strategic and focused in what we pursue to only look at the best possible use of time. So let's go on to the next slide, Ananda. And here's where we're really trying to focus on. As we think about our North Star, we have our three focus areas, and then our long-term strategy is a cultural shift. And as I think about culture, I think about decision making. How are decisions made within our mutual organizations? And in some cases, that's in education. We're helping people to think differently. And I would argue Steve made an exceptional point earlier. when he talked about risk. Risk is one of those areas that we all live in every day, and we are trying to help people to think more clearly and more with an increased focus on data and prevention in the risk domain. So as we're looking at our cultural shift, and by the way, we're doing that both in industry as well as government. We don't want to be out of step between what the industry is trying to do and what the government is trying to do. We want to make sure that we're moving together. So I think that that's about as deep as I want to go here. I would say for folks who do have an interest in learning more, please give me a call. Give anybody a call. My email address, tim.white@aia-aerospace.org, is available online. And so happy to receive those emails and queries. But I'm going to move on and I'm going to send it on over to Doug to talk a little bit about model-based quality assurance.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, let me, so as Tim mentioned, partnership, that's probably the key to this project. It was identified about 3 years ago now that what we wanted to accomplish within the evolving nature of digital acquisitions, digital modeling, the digital ecosystems that we're put in place for all of our products going forward, that we needed to recognize that there were quality parameters or activities within quality that also needed to be embedded within that digital thread. So we embarked with a partnership with DoD, DOW, to look at some other activities they'd already pursued within failure modes effects analysis to develop a SysML-based model for the artifacts that you generate. And that kind of led us to start thinking about, well, what are some of the key quality data parameters that come from producing products that we should also consider putting into a SysML-based approach, something that you can create a reference architecture, something you could create profiles for and then attach into your system models, into your product structures, so that as the digital involvement of that program goes through its life cycle, you'll have the ability to stitch together the data streams that are coming from either your manufacturing processes or procurement processes or design processes, things that are going to feed into some artifact at the end that would show the quality of a product. So we actually settled on two critical standards, in essence, the first article inspection and the certificate of conformance data that comes through. They're both rooted in the AS 9163 and 9102 processes. And we said, let's see what we can do to basically model the artifacts, the outputs from those activities, and develop this in the larger sense of putting into a whole product lifecycle model and then into a digital environment. So you can see what we did there. The vision, we obviously wanted to make sure we were rooted in some high level visions. And then the key, one of the things that Tim just showed is this was also facilitating the shift left approach. Obviously, an FAI and CFC come out pretty late in the ball game, but what we wanted to do is ensuring that you put this modeling in place. You can actually engage within the design activities earlier on. You can start inserting these profiles, these reference architectures into your systems models so that as the designs mature, you can start connecting in. So it was all in alignment with that as well to try to shift left the thought process and not keep this as an afterthought, the two that we've picked so far. You can see a little wheel down in the middle. There's some other activities that we've started to consider along the way, like what are some other areas of the model-based quality mindset that we should consider. But like I said, the first two things that we've picked and that we're getting ready, like Tim said, to kind of cross the finish line here with in the next, hopefully, a couple of months, the FAI and the CFC. But long laundry list, like Tim said and Steve said, the partnership that we've had to get this activity done wouldn't be possible without the support from the DOW, the Undersecretary of War. R&E team has been very supportive, providing us a modeler to basically do the work. And that's been a key. But we've had lots of great interaction with all the other agencies you see there, the support from the industry associations, and then, of course, broad support from the industry as well as we've gone through. So if you don't mind, go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about how this is going to play out or how we see this playing out. So we'll call it the execution. You can click one more. I think there's a chart that builds there down at the bottom right-hand side. But basically, what we've decided is these data, the quality data parameters. Like I said, we're going to basically house those into a data item description. We're going to call this the model-based quality assurance data framework. So a little bit of an acronym, but that was the best way we could see to kind of describe what it is we're putting in place. So this data item description, hopefully anyone that's executed a contract knows what that does in your contract. Kind of defines the format for the data that has to be delivered under that contract. But that DID is going to specify a modeled-based version for the FAI and the CFC data. It comes with what we're calling a profile and a reference architecture, so you'll have the ability to actually take right off the shelf a SysML-based format for this model. You don't have to go create it yourself, but we're obviously providing all the guidance in terms of the structures of those profiles and the reference architecture, such that if you don't have the capability of doing things in SysML, if you have a different architecture platform, you can go build it into that as long as you keep the key data parameters and the data linkages together. But we hope that people will just take a lift and shift approach to the SysML model that's going to be provided within this DID and start applying it from day one. But that'll be in there. And then we're also going to have a guidebook, because we realize this is going to be kind of new for folks. We realize, obviously, there's a lot of practice in the industry for doing FAIs and collecting CFCs, but the digital mindset of a model-based version for that we know is going to be kind of new for the organizations. So we've put together a pretty decent guidebook that's going to help navigate through the pitfalls from, hey, if you get a contract a proposal that has this requirement on it, what should you consider once you get underway and executing within that contract? What are some of the pitfalls, things you should be considering when you're going to go to employ this MBQADF? Then also the flow down the supply chain. Because obviously most of these things are related to the flow into the supply chain. From a prime perspective, you're going to have a cascading of these requirements in your supply chain to receive FAI data or CFC data. So we talk about how you're going to handle that interaction within the supply chain. And I think I'll just take a little side there, because we know one of the key enablers is not everyone is going to be able to actually live within the same model at the top level. There's going to be air gaps in the supply chain. There's going to be air gaps for various reasons why you couldn't all say live within the same model at the top level. So we're going to have other ways of ingesting the information, some simple forms, some simple Excel-based forms that suppliers that don't maybe have necessarily modeling capabilities can put the same parameters into an ingestible file that can be read into the master digital model. So we've considered that, and that'll be also talked about in the guidebook and how you would handle that interaction. So, but the holistic approach would be obviously down to whatever layer makes the most sense within your system architecture, system modeling to go get this data. You can deploy this model throughout that methodology, and that guidebook will help you out there. Give a few examples or how to actually use some of the tool sets within the SysML based approach. We also have a couple of key things just to consider for both the CFC implementation or the FAI implementation, because the model itself is one model. It has all the data parameters built in there, but you may not actually have to deliver CFC data at the same time you're delivering FAI data, or you may even have a requirement that you don't deliver the CFC data, you'll have to deliver the FAI data. The model's capable of doing either or together as you would be. But that's what you're going to get when you get this DID out there. We're going to publish it out into the system methodology. The Air Force is going to sponsor this as a DID out there, and we're in a time frame where we hope to have the review process started up in the first part of 2026, and little luck, we should get it through hopefully somewhere near the end of Q1 and the early part of Q2, so that it can actually be leveraged into a contract at that point. One thing I wanted to note here as well is that we're maintaining a lot of close interaction with other things that are happening in industry. I didn't put it on the slide, but one of the key things that we have is an interaction with the quality information framework, the QIF framework, and now also the model-based characteristics, the MBC characteristics that the DMSC organization has been publishing. So our model is fully compatible with QIF parameters, the MBC parameters, such that if you're already using those within your existing models, the data feels the connections are already built into this MBQADF, so you wouldn't have to do any other lifting to make that happen. So I think that's a very powerful thing. The other thing we did is we made sure that the layout from the object management group in terms of model-based acquisition effort, this is going to be considered as one of those domain overlays that you could require in a model-based acquisition profile to say, hey, show us how that the model-based quality parameters will be built into the systems architecture. how we use that as a discriminator, if we want to call it that, for building into the digital acquisition mindset. So we've maintained close alignment with that to make sure that the questions that or the interfacing that those DOs have to deal with in terms of the different subsets is all handled as well. So, and we'll continue to maintain those ties. We, like Tim said, we do hear often about new things that are evolving. So we'll bring those folks into this project and start talking about, is there something we need to do to be in alignment? Do we need to consider that as a future growth opportunity? Or do we have to do this now because it's out there and it's out there today? So that'll always be a big thing. But I think the key here, before I hop off the stage, obviously, is that we're really excited because what this then does, it really standardizes the way and the approach that you can take within a model, digital model based environment for your product development. The standard way that you can look at forms, the design views that will be created out of these, the ability to filter and then see within your product structure where you have FAI data, or if you have lack of FAI data, or if you're actually in production, you're actually using these to do the continued digital twin, and you have CFC data coming in for all your deliveries. You'll be able to kind of continue to see this and use the model to help drive that insight in terms of where your model, where all your data is coming from. So sources of truth, authoritative sources of truth is obviously a key thing here. So putting it all in this one package is going to be a big driver to make sure that from a prime even down to the mid tier and even low levels, whatever product structure you may have multiple different suppliers. This will help you kind of envision or have visibility to how those activities are really playing out. But like I said, our goal is we want to get this out there in the DLA assist world, start identifying some contracts that we can start piloting on, because we figure we're probably going to learn the first couple of times we do this, and then obviously feed that back into the model or to the guidebook or the data as need be. But obviously that data would get put on the contract. CDOs would ask for it in the model-based format. And hopefully this time next year, we'll be sitting here talking about one of the first opportunities that we're exploring with this new venture into a model-based quality world. So very excited about it. And at the end, if you have any questions, be happy to entertain. But Tim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, Doug, I'll tell you, as I sit here and think about the journey that you guys have been on, what strikes me is the ubiquity of both FAI and CFC. Every part gets an FAI, and every shipment gets a CFC. And they have always been, I would say in my career, they've always been kind of things that you do, but the data has always been locked up. It's never been available. It's really uh, uh, something that we invested in, but I don't know about the return that we got. And it really struck me the first time that I heard the activity that you guys were undertaking, just the power of the possibility of being able to collect all of this data, to have it in a single format, to have it be available, analyzable. All of that I think is really, really exciting. And to your point that you just made, it really sets the stage for a lot of future opportunity. I'm interested, Doug. You've talked a lot about some of the activities that you're undertaking with the DID and how that will be on the defense side. I'm wondering, could you tell us a little bit about the engagement or the opportunity for this approach on the commercial side and the
Yeah,
civil supply chain?
yeah, no, that's a good point, Tim, and that's but to key off your first point too. I kind of often joke that we do first article inspections, like you said. Sometimes that data gets kind of lost, stored away in Iron Mountain, and never come back to it. But if you truly do this the correct way, you actually build everything into a fully digital connected system. You don't have to think of that as a first article. You actually have an every article inspection set of data that every time you're putting something through the factory, if you have all those digital connections into your procurement systems, into your manufacturing inspection systems, however you digitally connect that data, it'll come with. You'll get that information for every time you put the next serialized number or the next batch of material out there. So it is pretty powerful when you start to think about what this in terms of data visibility for the primes and then to monitor the capability. We haven't quite figured out, the back end of this as well. Obviously, when you go into sustainment and operations, is there something that we can do to think about how do you feed some of that information from the operational side back into the models from a quality perspective? But there's obviously a lot of folks out there kind of doing that as well. So I think that really helps them tie into the commerciality of this too. just because it's implementing or it's going to be required in the contract and it doesn't mean you can't go use this. This is a model that it would be available that anyone that's in a digital kind of product development environment wants to impose upon their systems, they can take advantage of this. They don't have to wait for a contract div to show up. It can be leveraged. You can take the model as is. It's a generic SysML based format. The reference architecture and profile description that's there can be employed, like I said, within any other type of modeling tool that you would perhaps have at your disposal. But I think the fact that it's rooted in a standard, in an AS 9102 or a 9163 standard, is really what the key is. That's the key essential element there. That's what I think we'll continue to do as we look for other opportunities, is make sure that these data parameters are referenced in standards such that way it can be picked up and used in different aspects within the industry. And it doesn't just have to be a defense industry. It can be a commercial side of it too.
That's great. Tell me then, so you had mentioned people being able to use this regardless of whether or not it's on their prime contract. In order to get this thing going, if I were interested in it and I'm not part of that pilot, how do I do that? Is there a cost to it? Do I write a check to you? Where does this go so that I could use this in the very near future?
Yeah, so I think once we get it out on DLA assist, then there's going to be some other opportunities where we start to think about, having it available in other means. The first one, obviously, since we've been partnered closely with DoW on this, is to get it out there for their disposal and usage first. But yeah, since it does integrate in with the other standards, the opportunity space for doing that. Who's going to get the paycheck at the end of the day? That's a good question. I think because it's based in just the standard itself, it'll come somehow through that mechanism. We hope the guidebook and obviously this team will not dissolve on day one once it gets released. So there's going to be some learning that we have to do. So if there are projects that are not defense-based or government-based that want to take advantage of this, we'd obviously entertain the opportunity to engage with them and speak with them as they're off deploying this, so that we can build in the feedback into whatever improvement we need to make. So,
Excellent. Well, that's great, Doug. Thanks for that update. There's something that we actually did an update on this about a year ago, and it's really heartening to see this project moving forward. Because it is so critical. I really can see this shifting the way that industry processes and analyzes data. I think your point of that one-time FAI transitioning to a repeatable process wherein data is just available, it's a sea change with a tremendous impact. So thank you to you and the team for continuing to really pursue this thing over time.
thanks, Tim.
Ananda, let's go ahead and move on to NAS 414, which is a supplier quality metrics standard. Go ahead and let's dive into this. Now, just to set some context here, AIA, Aerospace Industries Association, we're a trade organization and we're representative of many of the defense industrial base and civil and space, and we do a lot of different interesting things. One of the things that we do is that we're a standards development organization, an SDO. That gives us the opportunity to sit down, convene with our members and with our government partners, and issue standards, common approaches that enable us to be on that same page. And I will tell you, it has been really interesting in the couple of years that I've been here to watch the collaboration between those two groups, the government and industry, to really hammer out what are the approaches that we want to mutually agree will be to our mutual benefit. And one of which was standardizing the way that we talk about supplier quality in terms of inspection and risk, and optimizing the investment that we're making there. So Tracy and her team have been working really hard. Tracy Lockhart, I'm sorry, have been working really hard to release this NAS 414 standard, and we were able to do that, I believe, in November, maybe October even. So it's been out there, and the reason that I wanted to promote this is because we anticipate that it will start showing up on contracts. And even if it doesn't, again, if it doesn't show up on your prime contract, it gives you the ability to flow it into your supply chain. Now, why would you do that? And the answer is here on this slide. First, you want to have a codified approach to risk. And I think that that is so critical. We talk about risk a lot, and sometimes we act in light of risk, and we don't really talk about the fact that that's really what we're doing. What this does is it enables us to say, what are the risks out there, and how do I make sure that I am investing appropriately in my surveillance activities? In particular, the opportunity is to not just say, well, I'm going to look at everything all the time regardless, but it gives us the ability to say, what is our process capability? And therefore, what is the appropriate level of oversight that we need to implement in order to balance risk and investment? We also want to ensure that the supply chain itself recognizes that if you do have a capable process, that you can reasonably reduce oversight of that process. And that, is kind of a dangerous thing to say in some circles, but as a quality professional, you certainly recognize it. You can't do everything all the time. And so what you're trying to do is to really focus in on those things that are most impactful. And that's what this really gets to. Um, let's go ahead to the next slide, which is our last slide. And it's really, this is the heart of the NAS 414 standard. Because what it allows you to do is it allows you to characterize surveillance frequency as related to first pass yield, CPK, which is the process capability, as well as how much inspection you're actually doing. So what you can see, and it balances on critical and non-critical. So it gives you this really neat kind of tidy framework to be able to say, I understand this is a critical part. I understand where my CPK is. And therefore, what do I do with respect to adjusting my surveillance plan there? So the key takeaway here, and I would encourage you to go and take a look at the NAS 414 standard, but it gives us the ability to say we all agree that this is the acceptable, this is the appropriate level of inspection and oversight for a given part, process, service even. You could do that. But it's a very similar approach to what you may have seen in previous versions of standards where they said, if you have an issue, then you increase surveillance. If you are trending positively in the appropriate direction, then you can decrease surveillance. And the thought is that we are focused in on where we need to have the surveillance investment and that we're allowing those things that are going well to just run. So again, I would encourage those who are interested in this approach, go and take a look at the standard. And then if you have questions, we can hook you up with Tracy and her team to come in and talk a little bit about what they've been doing there. So I think that's the end of our slides. And what I would ask, I think we've got Ananda on. Do we have any questions in the chat? We may not. None in the chat. If you raise your hand, Ananda can unmute you. Craig Bennett. Can you hear us, Craig? And can we hear you, Craig? I am not hearing you come through. Actually, I would make a note here, as people are thinking about what they've just seen, and I would draw our attention back up to the top, more at a strategic level. As we, the JSQC, are approaching what we should work on, we take as our guiding light best practices from industry, and we make sure that we are bouncing that against administration and regulatory and legislative priorities. Our goal is to make sure that we don't have daylight between what we are being asked to do and asked to deliver and what we are actually working on. We're trying to make sure that we are 100% aligned in delivering on those priorities that are being fed down. So I'll note that I don't see any other hands. And so with that, couple of things to close us out on. Number one, you saw on the projects list that we've got a lot of projects that are ongoing. We've only highlighted two. And there are many other things that we're working on here. Just talking, obviously, to Steve, and if you talk to Craig Bennett over at DCMA, never do I have a conversation with either one of them that I don't walk away with the thought of, you know what else we should work on? And so there is more work than we have resources to go and address. And I would strongly encourage you, if you're interested, if you're interested in participating and in being part of this next generation, I would strongly encourage you to reach out. And a question that I think that we just did receive is, explain how JSQC aligns with the latest presidential PMA. The PMA just came out recently. I think we read through it. We strongly resonated with it. We understand what they're going for. We are indeed trying to ensure that we are focused on the legislative requirements there, that we are eliminating unnecessary expenses. That's what all of this is really all about, right? You think about what Doug is doing there. We made an investment. We're trying to see that return. That's kind of where we're headed. Doug, I see you came off mute. Did you have something to add there?
Yeah, I think we actually did just talk about it, the most recent JSQC, in terms of showing the strong connection alignment. And I think the way you kind of bucketed the three major categories for our projects, Tim, definitely, when you think about the speed that we need to do in terms of acquisition, the finding ways to reduce regulations that don't enable us to go at speed to do these things. Those are some of the key themes that do play out in the project ideas, and then making sure the project initiatives, the deliverables, will tie back to those. So we continue to evolve the JSQC charter, or the long range plan, to be in alignment with the presidential and the government initiatives. So we do as a 5-year long look, and then we do a 1 to 3 year plan to align with them there. So yeah, definitely that's one of the critical things when we think about these projects, is how well do they tie back into the government's current mission, state and whatnot. So
That's great. Steve, before we go, any final thoughts?
Nothing fine. I think you captured it perfectly. I'm just, like I said, I'm very pleased to be part of this team, and I'm looking forward to continue working with the JSQC.
Excellent. Well, we are certainly looking forward to continued success. We're looking forward to continued alignment between government, industry, the administration, the Hill, all of these different players. We are really trying to be 100% aligned with that, deliver on value. So with that, I'll end the webinar. Thank you for attending. Please do reach out with any questions. And I think that we're going to schedule some follow-up as well. We only looked at 2 projects today. We're going to keep beating the drum on the good work that this team has done. So thank you so much for joining.